Welcome back to our very last session together for the season. I am excited to share with you how to make cascading flowing flowers. Now, I actually saw this on a different YouTube video that was mainly geared for adults, but I thought it might be fun to tweak it a little bit and see what we could do to make it for kids. So I hope you enjoy painting along with me. I've really enjoyed this project. I actually made several of them. I was having so much fun. Hopefully you will too. You're going to need to prepare your paper the way I showed you last week. Tape it to a cereal box and then wet it and then let it dry all the way. You'll be ready then to jump into this project. I hope you'll come back next year. We'll have all new classes, all new things to do. I'd love to have you back. Thank you so much for being part of my class this year. So we're back here again today. We've got our normal watercolor brush that went home with your kid. We have got our wolf brush that we're going to use in kind of a non-standard way, and you'll need the watercolors that I sent home with you and some water. Today we're going to make flowing cascading flowers, and I hope you have a lot of fun with it. Now I've prepared a piece of paper just like I taught you how to do in the last video, so be sure you have your prepared paper. It's now been wet and then dried, and now we're going to re-wet it, and we're going to take this wolf brush. We're going to use it to apply as much water as we can get away with. And we want to see if we can make this last by keeping careful and gentle on the top. And I do have quite a bit of water pooled up here. There's like pools and pools of water. So we're going to let it do that. And I'm going to take my big brush and I'm going to daub it into whatever the lightest blue or blue-green you can find is. And you're just going to kind of touch it along the top, and it needs to be really, really wet and juicy. So I've got a lot of water on my brush, a lot of water inside the paint, and a lot of water on the page. And I'm just going to let it flow down. And we're going to let it kind of go wherever it wants to go. And I'm going to do that again. I'm going to choose green. And put some green beside. I'm going to let that flow down. And if you've got better paper like watercolor paper or whatever, you're going to have some different results. It won't beat up as much. But for this project, it's just not going to be a problem for us. So I'm just kind of adding water only along the top and letting it flow down. However it wants to. And now I'm going to go find another green and add another green and maybe another green there. I'm just kind of letting it flow down. This is going to kind of set our background for our cascading flowers. And you'll notice again, I'm only putting water at the top of the page. Or color. I'm only putting color at the top of the page. And it doesn't really matter which greens and blues you use, but make sure right now we're just using those cool colors, those greens and blues. And letting them flow gently down. Now, kind of toward the edge back here, if you've got a gray or a black, maybe you add some gray or black to the top, just on one side, and let that flow down. All right, so now I've made a pretty interesting background. Now I'm noticing on mine, I just don't see enough blue. I'd like to see more blue. I see a lot of green and a lot of the dark gray, but not enough blue, and I do want some blue in there. So I'm going to go back and pat in some more blue and let that flow down. Again, I'm only staying at that top edge. I'm not letting myself paint anywhere else. All right, now I really like that. I think that's a lot of fun. So I'm going to stop there and I'm going to let this dry. And I will come back after it's dried, and then we're going to put in our flowers. See you in a moment. All right, so this is now completely dried. And I actually got fresh water. It's kind of hard to tell because the outside of this glass is a little murky. But I got some fresh water because now I want to kind of transition out of the cool colors and go to the warm colors. I'm going to wet my brush, and then I'm going to put quite a bit of water in the pan to wake up that color. I'm going to go for the magenta, but pretty much any of the warm colors, magenta, red, orange, yellow, orange, any of those would be just fine. I think this is red, orange, and orange. Whatever you have, whatever catches your eye. But now let's add some warm colors. Now what I'm going to do, you can see this has got a lot of water and paint on the brush, is I'm just going to tap. And I'm going to kind of tap in some loose flower shapes. I'm just patting it. Pat, 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 pat. And I really want right now a lot of kind of loose flowing paint there. And I'm going to even allow it to flow just a little bit so the flowers don't have such hard edges. So I'm patting and then I'm tilting a while. And then I'm going to come back and I'm going to pat and I'm going to tilt. And just let that paint flow off a little. Okay, and I'm going to wet my brush some more. And I'm just going to continue with that color. And when I pat it, almost kind of looks like a dog paw print. I've got a middle one, and I'm going to pat in a side, and pat in the middle again above it, and off to the side. And then I'm going to see if I can get that to flow just a little by tilting my board. And I like to see all kind of the fun experiments that happen when you work with flow and water. You can learn a lot about your paint that way. I think I'm going to add one down here. I'm going to let that flow a little bit. And I'm just going to keep going. And I'm just going to do a few at a time because if I do a lot at one time, then sometimes they dry too much to have that little bit of drip and flow and sliding around that I want. I don't want it to absorb in the paper so much that it can't flow and have that sliding, beautiful dripping look. Okay, let's pat in some flowers over here. And I'll let those flow down a little. Okay, so now we have kind of our background and we've got some flowing flowers. And we might now take some time to flow in a few more colors and let them almost kind of slide on top. And they may even bump in. So I think I'm going to transition and trade into my wolf brush. Again, just in case anyone's watching, this isn't supposed to be how they're used, but it's what I sent home to do a different project. And so I know everybody has one at their house, and it gives us at least a selection of brushes, which I like. So now we kind of got another layer going. And we might even tamp in some blue. Let that slide. And that red-orange is catching my eye, so I'm going to just put a tiny bit in a few of the flowers just to see what happens. And I'm going to let that flow off. For this project, you don't have to be afraid of it dripping. Kind of adds to the surprise and the fun of how this is going to look in the end. Now that little drip is not dripping enough, so I'm going to help it along just a little. And helping along, you don't want to actually start painting. You just want to kind of keep things moving. Now, if you happen to have really nice paper at home, watercolor paper, this is going to slide and move in different ways than it is here. And you'll have to decide which you liked more. I'm just adding kind of a couple more cool layers to the top. We tapped in some gray over here before, and I think I'm going to like that idea of keeping that area dark. But remember, when you're doing this part, you want to stay up near the top of your page. Don't tap in different ways. Okay, so now that's really starting to flow. So I'm not tapping in down here. I'm still staying true to keeping it all up at the top and letting it flow down. There we go. Well, I tapped there. I'm just trying to more help that drip along. So I'm going to help that drip along. Now this is a great time to experiment with your colors and see what things can happen when they mix. I'm going to add a little yellow into the top. I want to create hopefully what would become maybe a yellow-green. And sometimes when you're doing things like this, you have good surprises and bad surprises. And so again, just kind of pay attention to what you like when it happens, what you don't like when it happens, and then you can continue to kind of play with those ideas and mixtures as you go. All right, I really like where that is right now. I'm going to stop and let that dry because I'd like to come back in and do one more thing, but I want this to kind of set in first before I continue. So we'll come back a little later to this one and finish it in a bit. So now I've got my crayons, or if you'd like, you could just use another color of paint. It's just your choice. And what we want to do is we want to put little kind of centers in our flowers. I'm just making a few little marks to show the centers. Now I'm not coloring a dot, but I guess you could probably do that and that would be pretty too. But I'm more just kind of dancing around the center, making tiny rainbows. Some of them are upside down. Some of them are right side up. Maybe you can see that. I think it'd be really easy to see it on this one. I'm going to do kind of a smile there, and a rainbow there, and maybe a sideways rainbow and a sideways rainbow, and maybe a little dot in the middle. And so that's kind of how I'm going to have fun inside of each flower. Giving it just a little extra shape. See this one? How the colors kind of melted together? I think that's fun for a look like this. I like that. So don't feel like it's a mistake if colors kind of run and play together. For this kind of artwork, that kind of makes it fun. Go. All right, so now we have our cascade of flowing flowers. I hope you have fun. I hope you'll try all sorts of colors. Remember, if you have cool colors in the back, try warm things in the front. Or you could flip it and do warm colors in the back, let that dry, and cool colors for flowers. Okay, I'd love to see your work. Be sure to email it to me at missapronstrings@gmail.com. Bye-bye.